You know who made it.
So hi everyone and welcome to the See Me, Be Me podcast. Today we are joined by Harold Brako, who is a finance litigation and disputes partner at Addleshaw Goddard. So welcome to the podcast, Harold.
Thank you very much, Blair. I am absolutely delighted to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So could you start off by telling our audience a bit about yourself, your background and how you got started?
As you said, Blair, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for a long time. In fact, the last almost 30 years. My day job is as a finance disputes partner at Addleshaw Goddard. Addleshaw Goddard is an international law firm. We have offices throughout the UK. We also have offices in Germany and in Paris and in the Middle East. And I head up our Manchester office. So I'm the Manchester office head. I have other hats that I wear as well as doing my day job as a disputes partner. I'm also on the Addleshaw Goddard board, and I am also the co-head of the financial services sector, which is Addleshaw's biggest sector. In terms of our DE&I streams, I'm also one of the lead ethnicity partners. So yeah, a few hats. That's my day job. Yeah, it hasn't happened overnight. It's happened over many years. So.
And Harold, before we go further into your career, 'cause I've got so many questions that I'd like to ask you. But starting from when you were younger, when you were growing up, who were some of your main role models growing up who helped to shape you into the man that you are today?
It sounds a bit cliche, but my main role models were my parents.
Yeah.
My parents were originally from Ghana. My father initially came to the UK in the 50s because his brother was doing his accountancy exams at Deloitte's and kept writing to him and saying how wonderful London was. So he thought, well, you know, if it's that good, I'm going to see for myself. Came to the UK. And decided that he wanted to forge a career in the UK, which meant a lot of sacrifices. You know, he and my mother had a very young family, which were my older brother and older sister. But he came over first and had to retake all of his exams, even though the exams that he took in Ghana were the same exams as in the UK. And then he forged a career as a civil servant in the UK, and my mother and my brother and sister followed soon after. And then I was born, and so I've always known that story. And I've always looked up to my parents in terms of the resilience and the sacrifices and the ambition that they had, and the fact that they just forged ahead. They had the bravery to actually leave a country that was their home and come to a different country, which was very cold. And I say that for a reason, because despite being here for a long time, my parents never got used to the cold, but they had the bravery to do that and set up a new life in the UK. So I always, you know, as I say, it sounds a bit cliche, but I always looked up to them and thought that shaped me, because I always knew that if you set your mind to it, you can do anything you want.
Absolutely. And then going more into yourself, Harold, what motivated you to specifically specialize, let's say, in finance, litigation, and disputes?
Well, I suppose going back a bit, My ambition was to become a lawyer because, as the son of Africans, um, certainly back when I was younger, you didn't have many options. You were either going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an accountant.
Yeah.
My brother was an incredible footballer and actually was selected for England schoolboys, but that didn't feature in our house. It was either accountant, lawyer, or doctor. Thankfully, I actually wanted to be a lawyer. So I set my sights on becoming a lawyer. Back in the day when I was in short trousers, there was a program on telly called Crown Court, which I used to watch, and it was basically real life cases that took place in a court, which was reenacted by actors, and I used to love it. And you get the whole um, submissions made to the judge and the jury,
Yeah.
and then at the end of the program you get the verdict, and I loved the whole pomp and the drama and the arguments, and so yeah, that from a young age I knew that's what I wanted to do. It helped that my father um, was whilst the civil service was legally qualified as well, and actually worked on Chancery Lane. So whenever I used to be taken to lunch with him in the school holidays, I would
Yeah.
be in and around Chancery Lane and the senior courts. So yeah, I grew up with it, and so I always wanted to be a lawyer. Um, but that was all I knew I wanted to be. I didn't know what sort of law I wanted to go into or what sort of lawyer that I wanted to become, purely because no one ever told me about it.
Wow. I mean, it's just one of those paths, isn't it? If you know it's essentially, if it's, it's destined to be, that's the path that you're supposed to go on. So I wanted to touch on that in regarding to diversity and inclusion in the legal profession. So with your experience, Harold, could you share some insights on the importance of diversity and inclusion within the legal profession, and particularly in the context of your experience and role?
Yeah. Well, the insights are simply this: the legal profession has come late to diversity and inclusion in all its aspects, um, and it's only, I would say, in the last uh, uh, 5 to 10 years that you know women have actually been empowered within the legal industry,
Wow.
um, and you know in terms of ethnically diverse lawyers, it's shorter still. So yeah, as a business, the legal industry has come late to the party. um, but what is heartening for me to see is that efforts are being made across the board, across the sector, to improve that. Um, and I take Addleshaws as an example, and the example that I know that we looked at ourselves, pre-COVID, we looked at ourselves and realized that as a business we needed to be more diverse. And there's any number of studies out there now, McKinsey being the probably the most famous one, which talk about diversity and diverse businesses being the businesses that succeed. And all our clients are looking at this, and it's a no-brainer, and it's the right thing to do. So yeah, I think we sort of looked at ourselves as a business and thought, actually we could be more diverse, and we need to pave the way, but we also have to get our own house in order.
Yeah, absolutely.
So uh, so that's I think the starting point for our firm. But I'm happy to say that it's been a starting point for lots of law firms now who want to go down that diverse path because they know that actually it's the right thing to do, and if the more diverse a business is, the better it'll be.
Absolutely agree with that. I mean, part of the reason why we call our podcast the See Me Be Me podcast is, let's say myself and my brother, when we're going out to, when we first started our business 10 years ago, we're actually 10 in the 19th of March, but when we were first going out to, let's say, technology events, we were the only people of color at these events. We've seen change happen slowly, but not quick enough, really, essentially. So we want to be the trailblazers to show, let's say, other younger Black people who are in the science and technology industry that this is something that they can excel in. So I think with having more inspirational leaders like yourself in like these different areas, it shows other younger Black people that this is something that we can excel in as well. Because I think just having more role models that look like yourself, it just makes that a wider impact.
Yeah,
And
and I totally agree with that. And I had the conversation with your brother when I met him, and it was actually a leaders' conference with the Labour Party, and I think we were the only two Black male people there, and that's that was only last year. But we had this conversation, and I recounted the tale of a thing I was involved in with Manchester University called Black Lawyers Matter. Now, with the various roles I have, I'm quite time poor in that it's very difficult to get me to do things because I've got lots of things in my diary. And I had agreed with Manchester University and forgotten about it that I would take part in this thing that they had called Black Lawyers Matter. And what Black Lawyers Matter was about was that the university had realized that over a period of time, there were no Black male law students. And they were trying to work out how to remedy this and why this was. And so they set about looking at themselves and going round the local Manchester schools and specifically targeting young Black and Asian and ethnic minority boys who were just about to look at their GCSEs and what GCSEs they would take. And they got them all in. So you can picture the scene. There's about 250 young lads. And the way that they went was that they would have us in speed dating with tables. So you'd have a panel of the great and the good, including me, and we'd all be in a room at different tables, and they'd speed date the young lads with us 5 minutes each. And they warned us that the first question that the lads would ask is, what car do you drive and how much money do you earn? And I said, that's fine. I'll be honest with them, and I'll tell them exactly what they want to hear. And you could almost tell which lad it would be. It was the one with the twinkle in their eye, and you could set your watch by it. Within 10 seconds of sat at the table, they look at you, cock their head to one side and go, what car do you drive? At the time, I drove a Range Rover Velar, so I was quite happy to say I drive a Range Rover Velar, and they'd like, "Ooh, that's quite cool." And then they'd say, "How much money do you earn?" And I'd say it's complicated because I'm an equity partner in a law firm, which means that my salary is based on how well the firm does as a whole.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite good. Sometimes it could be 6 figures. At which point they'd all go, right, how do we become solicitors? and lawyers, and it was great, and it was just great to for these kids who generally their role models were footballers,
Yeah.
um, or media personalities or musicians. So it was good for them to go, actually, I can do something else that also earns me a living.
Yeah.
So where do I sign up? And it was, I remember before I went, I said to my PA, look, I might have to get you to drag me out of this because I haven't got time to do this whole day. She rang me at lunchtime to try and drag me away, and I said, no, I'm loving this. This is one of the best things ever. Um, and then after the speed dating, we then went back into the main room. We did a panel event where they asked us all lots of different questions. Um, and by the end of the day, I felt uh, it was one of the best days I have had in terms of giving back.
Wow.
And I knew that even if two, three, four of those lads went off and not even became lawyers, but actually considered going to university, then I'd done my job.
Fantastic. One of the things I wanted to touch on, just further going into the impact of the young people you've worked with, Harold, is just could you go in more into how you mentor like aspiring like ethnic lawyers, both internally and externally, and just what impact do you hope to achieve through this mentorship? Just a bit more on like the wider impact of some of the young people that you've worked with.
Yeah, well, again, the Black Lawyers Matter event
Yeah,
is a one-off thing that I do, but I also do lots of talks for ethnic minority aspiring lawyers,
yeah,
and just give them my story of how I got to where I've got to, and talk about the fact that they should all have a plan. I never had a plan, which was terrible. My plan was to qualify as a solicitor. Um, and then I've been very lucky in that things have fallen in place, and I've had mentors and I've had sponsors. And so when I talk to people that I mentor and sponsor, I talk to them about doing just that, is go out and get mentors and go out and get sponsors. And there is a difference between mentors and sponsors. There's people a mentor is someone who will gladly share um, all the tricks of the trade with you, and will gladly point you in the right direction. But sponsors are even more valuable because they're people who would do things for you in the background that you don't even know about.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's difficult to find them, but if you ask, people will take on those mantles for you. I um, was part of the black lawyers, up and coming black lawyers, for a long time. So each year I was sent two young lawyers to sponsor and mentor. Um, but equally, when I do a lot of these talks, people reach out to me directly, and yeah, I'll give them the time of day because it is the right thing to do.
And then, what advice would you give to, let's say, other legal professionals looking to become more involved in promoting DNI within their organisations?
Just be brave and do it. When I first came to AG, I, as I say, I was the first black male partner that they had, and I was rewarded when I left Shoesmiths to come to Addleshaw's. I was rewarded by being put in the garden for 6 months,
Yeah.
which, if anyone gets garden leave for 6 months, is amazingly brilliant. You get paid to do nothing, and it's like a backhanded compliment. And in those 6 months, one of my friends, Sally Penny, if
Yeah.
you've not had Sally on your podcast, get her on your podcast. She's a whirlwind. She's amazing. Sally tracked me down and said, "You are not sitting on your backside watching Judge Rinder at lunchtime. You are coming with me to various universities to talk to ethnic minority law students
Yeah.
and empower them and motivate them to follow in our paths. And so, yeah, it's down to Sally that I really, it opened my eyes. So when I came off of my garden leave and I started at Addleshaw's, one of the first things I did was I thought, why don't we do something here? You know, we as a business, we want to effect change. And the way we do it is to get people in the office. And so, and you know, do a panel event, for instance. So we did a panel event, and I called it "It's Okay to Talk About Race."
Yes.
And on the panel, we had Sally Penny as a barrister. We had an accountant. We had a judge um, and another barrister. And I I compared it, and it was standing room only. We had a room full of people, helped, you know, also by some of the people that I had mentored who invited people in, and they were coming into an international law firm in Manchester and hearing from people in positions that they had aspired to. And it was very powerful. And again, it's just an example of trying to make a difference. And you know, anyone can do this. And I've seen some of my peers around Manchester now emulating that and also doing that and trying to give back, and that's quite heartening.